Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is 4 o'clock Central Time here in the great state of Texas. It is time for episode 15 of Own the Phone. Let me ask you a question. Imagine how amazing it would be to know the secrets of the top real estate agents and coaches all across the United States and Canada. Imagine what that would do for your business and how you could grow, not only as a business person, but also as a person as well. Well, the good news is you don't have to imagine, because today's guest is going to share some of the best and brightest ideas she's learned over the last several years. And we're excited to talk to her. You know what time it is? It's time to own the phone. All right. Welcome back. I'm excited. I had a good opportunity to meet this amazing woman a couple of weeks ago, and we chatted for a little bit, and I thought she would be an awesome guest with all of the experience she's had in the world of journalism, as well as in all the interviews she's done with real estate experts around North America. So I think we are in for a super treat today. My guest today is Kimberly Houk. She was born in Houston, Texas, but was raised in the Rocky Mountains of Salt Lake City, Utah. She's a proud graduate of Brigham Young University with a degree in broadcast communications and international politics. She has 20 years of journalism experience working for some of the biggest organizations that produce news today. She's covered major stories in some of the largest news markets in America as well. She's recently turned her focus to the real estate industry and uses her skills to investigate, discover, and report on how agents build a sustainable real estate business. Welcome, Kimberly Houk. How are you?
Thank you, Wally. Doing well. Thank you for that introduction.
It's good. I appreciate that. Thank you. It was easy because you gave it to me. So that's great.
Yeah. I saw you reading it.
Anyway, that's all right. It's okay. These things happen. So anyway, you have to give me some how to read words without looking at them advice as a reporter. So anyway, I'm excited to have you here. Kimberly and I met last week. I'm excited because I'm going to be one of her featured coaches on Prospecting Today, which is her baby. And she's got a couple things she's going to tell us about today, because in addition to being the managing editor of Prospecting Today, she also has another company where she helps people tell stories, which I'm going to let her share with you today, because that's also an incredible opportunity as well. But let's start at the beginning. So how did you end up, what made you decide you wanted to go ahead and get a degree in journalism at BYU? What was the force that said, hey, you know what, I want to go and do that?
Actually, I was just sitting with my dad when I was filling out my college application, and he was typing it out for me, and he said, they want to know what you want to major in. And I was a senior in high school, and I said, I'm going to go to law school, so just put pre-law. And he said, pre-law is not a major. You've got to pick a major. And he handed me a sheet of paper. He's like, these are the majors they offer. Choose one. And I got all the way down to the B's, and it said broadcast journalism. And I said, oh, that sounds fun. And then I also thought, well, if I decide not to go to law school, I can immediately go to work with a bachelor's degree. So that was interesting to me. I wanted a degree, because usually if you go to law school, they try to push you into an English degree, which you can't do much with a bachelor's in English. And so I wanted something, or maybe you did.
I have a bachelor's in English, just so you know.
And were you able to go right to work with your English bachelor's, using?
No, of course not. No, I taught high school for a year, and I worked in the mutual fund industry. It took me 5 years to get a job that had anything related to it. I was just pointing out that I did.
You usually, it's a great degree, because everyone needs to learn how to
communicate,
communicate and write and whatnot. But I would imagine you needed a teaching degree with your English degree.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was like, I'm going to do broadcast communications, and I put it down, and I stayed very focused on wanting to go to law school. And when I would sit down with a law counselor, she'd be like, your major's too weak. You're not going to get into a good law school with a communications major. And so I paired it up with international politics, which seemed to make them happy. And then when I graduated, and I'm just so solely focused that I wasn't somebody that would get into college and change a ton of time and take 6-7 years to get out of college. Once I chose a path, I stayed on it until I completed it. And I just was blessed enough at the end of it that I kept getting hired in the industry. So
that's a tough business, not just to crack into, but also to stay in, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very tough business. What people don't realize about it is it's extremely low paying initially. Like only a few people in this industry make a lot of money. And that's something I didn't know when I was getting the degree. I didn't really figure it out to my very last class when we had a visiting professor from NBC News. He was like their Moscow correspondent. And he said, just to let you guys know, you're only going to make about 17,000 your first year out in the industry. That was the first time it just never even dawned on me to think about like these people don't get paid anything. And so luckily I was able to jump through the ranks fast enough that I could make a living at it. But initially it was very difficult, which weeds out a lot of people. And then of course, a lot of people just never get that first on-air job.
So you did you ever get into national broadcasting? Is that ever your thing, or were you more of a?
No, I was always local news because I was in Orlando. So I was in Salt Lake City, Utah, when an agent out of New York City noticed me, took me on to Baltimore, then on to Orlando, and then 2007, 2008, 2009 happened, and the economy collapses. Newspapers across the country are folding. TV stations are laying off people like crazy because our biggest advertisers were the automobile companies. And if you remember during that time, nobody was buying cars. Houses were getting foreclosed on. Nobody was buying cars. They weren't spending money in advertising, and stations were they were laying off like crazy. And so that Orlando would have been a good spot because I had a top agent in the industry that would have launched me into like a Boston or a New York, but everybody just stopped hiring. And so, so sorry, let me put this on
That's
Do
okay.
Not Disturb. Did not even think about that.
That's okay. No worries.
And anyway, so my agent called me up because I ended up getting wrapped up in a huge layoff in Orlando because I was one of their newer hires. There was like 30 of us they let go in one day because everybody was tightening up on their budgets. And my agent called me. He's like, don't worry about this. This is going to be such a great thing for you because people in New York and Boston, they're going to get rid of their huge money makers, these older people in the industry that are costing them a lot of money. And it's going to pave the way for your generation to come in and make half of what they were making. Except that's not what happened. Those people all took massive pay cuts to stay. Yeah. So the industry just kind of started to crumble, and I was lucky enough to get hired back in my hometown of Salt Lake City, and I stuck with it for another 4 or 5 years and then started my own company. So just using my journalism in the private sector. But I mean, if you just think about local news in general, it's just not something people watch anymore because we carry around the news on our phones anytime we want it, when we want it, how we want it. And journalism in general has just completely died on the vine. People don't trust newscasters anymore. It's just, it's kind of a dying field, which is kind of very, very sad because we're losing our fourth estate. We're losing really solid journalists that start at those really low paying jobs and get wiser and wiser through the years as they work their way up and are able to then work with the whistleblowers and blow the big stories. And we've lost that along the way because it's such a cash cow and people jump ship because they can make money doing something else because these private equity firms come in and they buy these TV stations, they, bleed them dry and they sell them to the next private equity firm. So, it's a really sad thing that I see going on in America when it comes to losing our faith in journalism.
Awesome. I didn't know that. That's terrible that that's happening because it does, when somebody is a actual professional journalist and takes their job very seriously and wants to print the news as is, it's extremely valuable.
Yeah. If they're wise, right? And it takes years to become wise, years. And they're not, nobody's sticking with the industry long enough to get to where they're really wise and valuable anymore.
So, congratulations on you for having enough resilience to make it through the downturn. I mean, I was in the real estate industry at that time and it was a butt whipping for sure for everybody. So you're in Salt Lake City and you say, okay, time to go do something else. And so you started your own business. What did you start doing originally?
So I started a documentary business that's called Family Storyteller. So it's familystoryteller.com. And it's basically going out and getting grandma's story while she's still around to tell it. So it's genealogy, like the future of genealogy. Like let's get these people's life story in their own words while they're still on this earth to tell it. So it'd be like going in and interviewing grandma, her children, her grandchildren, writing her life story, pulling in her old, photos, and maybe if there's some video along the way to create this high definition documentary of her life. something you'd watch on the PBS channel, except it's your personal family story. So I do a lot of that. I do a lot of like parents' 50th wedding anniversaries, like his story growing up, her story growing up, how they met, and then the kids start coming into the video. They're really special projects. And then a lot of pieces where people get diagnosed with cancer and you got to get in there quick and get their story, told in their words, for their families. And, it's a computer file that will get passed down through the generations. Like, how great would it be to sit and watch your grandmother tell her life story? I mean, I don't have anything like that. And I think people would sit and watch 30 minutes to an hour of their grandmother or their grandfather or, their grandparents together before they would pick up a journal and read it or read a book about them,
But not just that, but also the great grandchildren, a lot of, being able to not just tell the stories, but have them tell the stories themselves. So we'll let you tell that a little bit more towards the end there. And so it's storyteller.com, correct?
FamilyStoryteller.com.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's talk about how we got to prospecting today.
So then as a journalist, I just have a lot of friends in the industry, and I started listening to, them talk about real estate. And I started finding that very few people actually make it in this industry. And when I dug a little deeper, it looked like only about 10% of people actually make money in this industry. And that's such a huge statistic in terms of, like, I hear people all the time, even today, because it's going gangbusters, people that are maybe can't figure out what else to do in life. They're like, oh, I'm going to become a real estate agent. And I'm just thinking in my mind, you don't even understand how few actually do well in this industry. And so when I started looking into that, I wanted to know why. Why was there such a low bar to entry, yet such a high failure rate? And what I started realizing when I was talking to a lot of these experts was people didn't understand how to build a business. They had no clue how to build a sustainable business. And so when I looked at what the industry was providing in terms of, like, honestly, if you think of prospecting today, it's really a training tool. It is experts that I go to that teach you how they became successful, or coaches that understand how to get people to become successful. It is roadmap after roadmap. And I wasn't really finding that with any publication in the industry that was strictly revolving around how does a real estate agent learn how to build a business that is sustainable. And it really does come down to prospecting. And prospecting takes the form of many different things, but you got to be out there talking to people, be it on the phone. I mean, some of it's passive prospecting where they're doing it all online, but a lot of who I've found who are truly successful tend to be the aggressive prospectors. And it's a lot of cold calling, and it's a lot of knocking on doors. And there's a lady I recently profiled on the site, and which also opens up an even bigger thing. It's what's your why? Like, when you cannot fail, those are the people that tend to do really well in the industry. They have something really big that's driving them. And this lady, her husband went away to prison, and she was left with 6 kids. She was educated, but she hadn't worked in 20 years. So, I mean, your education on a resume doesn't look that great when you don't have 20 years worth of work experience, So she was really starting at ground zero. Her name's Venus Morris Griffin. She's from Augusta. And she started in 2008 at a time when nobody was really selling real estate and nobody wanted to get into the industry. And she was a multimillionaire within a couple of years. And her method was more calling for sale by owners, knocking on doors of for sale by owners, and just hustling and branding herself and becoming somebody that would convince you she could get it done for you. And she did, time and time again, until she was the only game in town.
You know what still works today? Knocking on doors and hustling and calling for sale by owners and demonstrating your value and branding yourself. So that has not changed.
Right. Well, none of it's changing. So I think the message then becomes, if you're serious about it, there are no shortcuts. I literally got a call this weekend from a real estate agent that has been successful in one market, has decided to move to a new market. And he wanted to know from me specifically, what was the magic bullet? How was he going to succeed in this new market? And I was like, there's no magic bullet. You have to work your tail off. You have to be talking to people constantly. You have to drum up business.
Nice. So obviously prospecting today speaks to the fact that picking up the phone is part of that, and doing it not just consistently, but doing it well at some point. What are some of the finer points that you've besides branding yourself, prospecting, knocking doors, physicals, what are some of the finer point to some of the finer strategies that you learned from people that have been pretty durable over the last several years and that they're using to grow their business?
I will tell you the number one mistake top agents have all told me, and it's all the same answer that comes with what they did bad in the beginning that new agents should avoid. And that is they did not create a database on day one. Mm-hmm. They did not save their contacts from everybody they were talking to, everyone they did business with, starting on day one. Mm-hmm. And that set them back maybe at times 5 years. Mm-hmm. Because they would talk to somebody, and if it didn't seem like they wanted to sell or buy something within 30 days, they just kind of threw out the contact instead mm-hmm. of holding on to that contact and nurturing it until that person's ready to make a move. Right. And so the biggest piece of advice I got from really successful people were, on day one, you start that database. You start it with your Facebook group of people you know. You start it with your sphere of influence. You start building a database, and everybody you talk to immediately goes into that database.
That person agrees with you. Amen. No shortcuts. Do the ditch digging work with enthusiastically and consistently, 100%.
Yeah, so, and consistency is another thing. That's another secret they all share. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is something they have all told me. They keep a consistent schedule. So this lady I was just telling you about, she was up at 5 o'clock every morning. She hit the gym every single morning to get her head clear and ready for the day. Then she'd be at home making breakfast for her kids. They'd attend mass, and then she'd be in the office by 8:15. And prospecting is always 4 hours a day for these people. And then they go on to their appointments or whatever else they have. And as you get more and more successful, your busy work, your paperwork is going to go to an assistant. But right away, like you're not somebody who can have somebody, take buyers around. Like you need to be doing that as you're building your business. But as soon as you can, the faster you can get into a listing only type real estate business, the more successful you're going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the more time you're going to have for yourself too.
And everyone remember, I'm not an expert. I am just telling you what I've learned over 3 years of interviewing the experts.
So here's the thing. By virtue of that, by virtue of affinity, you definitely are an expert, because everything you're sharing makes complete sense. And I actually want to embellish a couple of points. The first thing is to your point, I think it's 88% of real estate agents, 80% of real estate agents never renew their license after 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Because they don't make any money.
No, right. In fact, the average real estate agent last year made a little over $47,000 and listed their biggest expense as their automobile. So that should tell you something right there.
And here's another big thing is there are more real estate agents right now than there are homes to be sold.
For months now. Yep. Crazy. Yeah. Right. We're at 1.51 million realtors and over 2 million real estate agents in the US right now, the most ever.
Mm-hmm. Because it's a boom town right now. Everybody sees that wealthy real estate agent and thinks, oh, I can do that.
Right. Which leads me to my second point. People get in, right? Because there's 3 freedoms we talked about is, time freedom, money freedom, and location freedom, right? They'll be able to do what I want, when I want it, where I want it, without having to worry about having to worry about money. What a lot of people don't understand is that comes at a great expense. The amount of time and energy you have to put in, the consistency you have to put in, and the amount of no's you have to hear to get to that point. Just kind of like you know what I'm saying? You're going to get a job and you're going to be in like Derry, New Hampshire at some, TV station that's got a cameraman, it's got minimal, resources, and you're on some local TV station until you can work your way up to where you were,
Yeah.
Who knows how long that's going to take, but you know what? You've got to get up, you've got to go dig up stories. You've got to work before, after, make phone calls, right? You told me about that when we talked about what you did. So it's the same thing in real estate. Like you have to go ahead and do the things that successful real estate people do in order to be successful. And that's prospecting, building relationships. Nurturing is the name of the game in real estate, right? Getting people in your database and staying on top of them, so that's good.
And the big money makers, you need to understand in the first probably decade of their career, work 60+ hour weeks. They are always on. And another thing you need to understand is if they are still buying and selling homes for people and they're still at the top of their game, that phone is attached to them 24/7 and they do not take calls. The really successful agents always answer their phone, always.
Yep. That is the truth. And it's scary how many agents don't answer their phone these days. It's terrible. What is your hope for prospecting today? Where are you looking to take it? What are you looking to do with it long term?
Well, my hope is like if you go into prospectingtoday.com, it's just got so much great material. And I mean, I've had top coaches like Mike Ferry sit down with me for over an hour and share secrets of how to be successful in this industry. And I'm giving that to people for free. So there's so much great content on that site where you can learn from the best how to be successful. It's not even like we give you an idea. A lot of them are giving you a roadmap that you can just follow the roadmap and be successful. And then there's some one-offs where it's like, figure out what your personality is that will help you decide which customers you're going to connect with most. And that's going to be your bread and butter of your business. Like there's experts that talk about stuff like that. So just keep in mind, this has been, I've been at it for 3 years. The publication's been live for about 2 years. And it's just been filling constantly with like people's information of how to build that sustainable business. And it was interesting things like surveys I did where, people, former military people do really well in real estate. And what we realized was they did really well because they were used to sticking to a schedule. Then I would talk to a real estate agent that literally thought he could work 2 hours a day and build a successful business. And that's just not how it is.
I can if you're a millionaire, but I'm just kidding.
Not when you're starting.
And just being a wise guy.
Somebody hands you a business and you are so suave, you are able to pick it up and run with it. But that doesn't really happen. I think some of the more interesting stories on prospecting today are from those people who were successful in one market, decided to move to a new market and became successful again. So then they know what they're doing.
Right. I was being facetious, obviously.
No,
you got to work your butt off. I want to also just embellish another point that you made that, the people that are like, I think I don't want people to think they go to prospecting today and they're just going to hear top level, here's how to continue to make 300, 400, 500 home sales a year. It's about, hey, listen, this is like from ground zero, right? What I did from day one and the things that made me successful and things that continually make me successful and how you can take what I've learned and what I did to take it into your business, no matter where you are at the moment, right? So that's really where the rubber meets the road, right? It's not just all high level, super fantastic, all success stories about how wonderful things are. It's literally about, the stuff that people overcame and what they had to do to be where they are today. Correct?
Absolutely.
That's a huge distinction. So people can also find you on YouTube. And so if you just go to YouTube and look at Prospecting Today, I've subscribed. And so you're able to get access to all the videos and then go back and watch video upon video. Do you know how many people you have on your site or on YouTube right now that they can watch on the video?
I think I looked this morning and I'm at like 893 people so far. But I would highly suggest you subscribe to it because then you're going to get a notification when I drop a video. And I'm going to drop your video, Wally, probably this week or next week. And so it's really good information so that it's not something you have to check constantly. Just get that notification like, hey, she dropped a video. It might be something that's worth it to you if you're a real estate agent. And it most likely will be.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to think, how long would it take somebody to cull information and get the nuggets and the juiciest morsels from almost 900 real estate agents and coaches? I mean, it would take forever. You wouldn't have the time. Right. So it's a monstrous resource. Is there someplace on Facebook they should find you as well?
Yeah, it's under prospectingtoday.com. I don't do as much with the social media as I do with the YouTube channel, just because I'm so video based in a lot of what I'm doing. I do articles, and I try to put articles with every video I'm doing as well. In case you can't watch it, you need to just read it. But I am putting a lot of my resources more into the YouTube channel than into social media.
Awesome. Cool. Do you have any other little nuggets you want to share before we let you talk a little bit about what you're doing for both your companies?
Goodness. Let's see. There's so many different nuggets. I think I dropped a lot of them along the way of how people got started. I mean, I would just basically say, go on there. I've created a playlist on the channel of my top videos that you could just watch that playlist of people just sharing thing after thing. And I'm also creating a series where it's like, it's basically this is where I was and this is what I did, meaning this was a really bad situation that took a bad turn in a deal I was doing, but this is what I did to turn it successful. So I'm focusing a lot on that right now as well, because I want to put real estate agents in the main frame of mind, I should say, of, wow, if something goes bad, oh wait, I heard about this once and this is what they did to be successful to get out of the situation and make it a good situation. So I would say there's one video on there where a couple did, they did straight social media and they're wildly successful. I mean, they were all about They're a husband and wife real estate team, and it's Kimberly James Real Estate, Northern California. And they would do these fun Facebook videos, and they would really let people into who they were personally as human beings. And that's how they built their real estate business, off of Yelp reviews and things like that. So there's different ways that I'm showing you can do it, but it does come down to prospecting. Be it you are prospecting for them online through Google Ads, or you are prospecting on the phone, or you're prospecting by knocking on a door, or you're working your sphere of influence. You have to be talking to people.
Right. And as we discussed the other day, it doesn't matter where you get the lead from. At some point, you have to get on the phone with them and have a conversation to get them in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have a lot of people talking about those things like Zillow leads. Are they worth it? Stuff like that. Like, everyone's weighing in on those topics right now. Everyone's weighing in on how crazy the market is right now, and what they think is going to happen, and the idea of like, you hold in reserves when you're making a ton of money so that you can float the lean years, because there'll be times when there'll be lean years. So I think something that's really interesting that I've been covering a little bit lately is with how crazy this market is and how many people are failing to get their bids accepted on homes. We've talked to experts about, how did you secure that home for your buyer when it was a bid war, or the behind the scenes thing, like, why did you accept that bid? And you start to realize, oh, they like that real estate agent and they want to work with that real estate agent. And why do they want to work with that real estate agent? And you'll learn things that they'll tell you, like, I chose them specifically because this real estate agent operates this way. And that is so attractive to me.
Right. And I think the great thing is 3 years ago, trying to think, was 2018, we were in an entirely different real estate market now than we are now. So you have information and resources for people that runs the gamut from, hey, when things are cranking along really well to the point where you're struggling to get a deal across the table. So super information. Get a little props here. Person says, I love this conversation. My opinion, the daily activity is successful. Successful is industry agnostic, meaning it's for everybody. It doesn't matter. It says, I'm in financial planning in Massachusetts, and what you preach holds 100% true for our industry. So good stuff. I like it.
Very true.
Cool. So let's talk about let's see here. Let me go right here. So I want to talk again about familystorytelling.com. Familystorytelling.com.
Oh, there you go.
I had the URL right. I just didn't say it right. So sorry. Yeah. So I think it's cool because, in general, as salespeople, we need to be able to tell stories anyway. I just loved what you talked about when we met last week. I want to give you just another chance to plug it because I think it's incredible.
Yeah. So again, familystoryteller.com is like, it's my passion project. It's a company I started that took me out of television news. And the reason why I went that direction was because I always had a passion for telling people stories. If I was in the newsroom and there was a real people story to be told, I was always the reporter selected for it. And so something happened. I was working in news in Salt Lake City, and a dear friend of mine in Orlando called me and told me his father died. And it was just so heartbreaking. And what he had told me is, like, he was walking around with his father's old flip style cell phone because it had his voicemail greeting on it. Like, that's what he was treasuring, was that he could listen to his father's voicemail greeting on this old flip cell phone. And I was just like, wow, like, I just started thinking about that. And then he told me that before his father passed away, he was in the hospital for a solid week. He was lucid. He was able to talk to his family. They were able to say their goodbyes. And then when they did the viewing or wake, they set up a video camera in a room in the church. And what they wanted was, they kept hearing from people ever since he passed away that, oh, he would do this for us. He made sure we had this. Like, he was doing so many great things in the community to take care of people that the family didn't even know. And so they set up this video camera in the church so that they could get these stories. They wanted to collect these stories. But instead, when they got home, what they got was just condolences, like, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Let us know if there's anything we can do for you. And as he's telling me this story, I'm thinking to myself, well, what you needed was me standing beside that video camera, asking the questions to bring out those stories, because you can't just set up a video camera and just let people say whatever they want. Like, they need some direction. And I was like, and I have the talent to do that. And as I thought more about it, I thought, oh, and if your father was in his hotel bed for a week and lucid and could talk about his life, How great would it have been if I'd gone and interviewed him and got his life in his own words, and then interviewed you kids and interviewed your mother and got his old photos and got some family videos and wrote his life story and narrated it and created this documentary that the family could see, for the rest of their lives, and pass down the computer file for generations to come. So my product is, you'll see the names pop up on the screen, and I'm doing that for future genealogy purposes. Like, as the computer file gets passed down, I want people to know who's talking on the screen. And it's a very high-tech product that you would watch on the PBS station, except it's about your family,
Cool.
So anyway, so I got involved in that, and I love it. And it's been one of the most rewarding things I've done in my life, because in a way, I get, like, when I do a 50th wedding anniversary, I'll go to the party where they unveil the video. And it is so rewarding to watch these people see, while they're still alive, the kind of impact they've had on other people. They get to watch it. It's like, you could say it's like a eulogy in a way. It kind of is, but they get to be a part of it. They get to see it. Like, wow, I didn't know, like, that was so important to you. And then one thing I found out that was really interesting was I would find out things about family members that the rest of the family didn't know, because they don't ask questions. Like, they don't ask that question about, Dad, tell me about the first time you ever laid eyes on Mom. Tell me about that.
Cool.
Kids don't ask their parents these types of questions.
Right.
And I also found that they will open up more with me, a stranger, than they would with a family member. So when I do my interviewing, nobody else is allowed in the room but me and that person.
That's cool.
Because it changes the dynamic of what they're willing to say.
100%. Cool.
So it's just been a really interesting learning experience. And it's definitely, a passion project of mine. And I absolutely love it.
So you can go to familystoryteller.com, say that 10 times fast.
Familystoryteller.com. Yes.
And they can actually see an example of one of your documentary style.
Yeah.
Very cool. Nice. Awesome. Well, you said you had some goodies to give away. And so I want you to just tell real quickly about the ebook you've made available at no cost to these folks.
Yeah. So I put together an ebook, which is the 10 of the top coaches in the industry and their advice about how to be successful. And I've made it available for free. You can download it for free if you go to prospectingtoday.com and subscribe. If you subscribe, they'll instantly email you the ebook.
Awesome. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, I can be reached at Kimberly at prospectingtoday.com. If you have an idea for a story in the real estate space that would help an agent build a successful business that you don't think I've tapped into or touched on, let me know, and I'll go to the expert and I'll cover that story.
And I can speak to that because she did.
Yeah.
It was awesome too. So, for those of you who are going to watch this later on, because a lot of folks watch later on, they don't necessarily watch live. Please go ahead and put some questions in here. We're going to be monitoring this post. And if there's something we can pass along to Kimberly to answer for you, that'd be great. Again, check her out at prospectingtoday.com, also at familystoryteller.com. And you can catch her on YouTube, Prospecting Today, as well. Well, listen, I really appreciate you making some time for me today. I know you were a busy woman, so it means a lot that you took the time to hop on here today. And you added a tremendous amount of value. And it was just so good to have you on here today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Wally. I appreciate the opportunity.
Sweet. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's you know how it goes, Fear. That's right here. That's my good friend, Kimberly Houk. I'm Wally Bressler. This has been On the Phone. Hey there, this is Wally Bressler. And on behalf of my guest today, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of On the Phone. If you'd like more information on how to overcome sales call reluctance, procrastination, and self-sabotage, and become an expert on the phone, go to www.phonesalessecrets.com. And if you'd like my free course on how to overcome sales call reluctance, please go to www